The saturation secret. In a pyramid scheme, the marks are roped in with a pitch that seems true enough and entirely feasible. Surely you know 5 other people, and they will each know 5 others, right? Now you already have 30 on your team. Only if the math is continued does the plan show its absurdity. The last 30 will also have to gain 30 each in the same way, adding 900 new people. And those 900 will have to find 27,000, who will need 810,000. Very soon, those at the bottom will not find their own 30, maybe not even 1. As Lee Mittinger privately explained to his future partner William Castleberry when they formulated the blueprint of all future MLMs, it would lead to, quote, everyone on Earth eventually selling for Neutralite. In Carl Renborg's biography, Mittinger described the plan's electrifying promise of an expanding chain, transferring unlimited income to each new recruiter as a joke. He knew full well that finding just 5 others who are actually interested and will pay is not sure at all. And if the 5 are found, their 5 others often turn out to be each other or their mutual friends. Long before overall saturation arrives, local and individual network saturation breaks the chain. The awe-inspiring vision of a pot of gold, money from an enormous pyramid of social connections, blinds people not only to the reality of saturation and chain breakage, but even to the funding source itself, their own money. All that is occurring is money being moved around inside the chain, a closed market. Virtually nothing is generated in the real open market. The MLM money transfer in the recruiting chain is equivalent to promising 10 people that if they each invest $10 into a common fund, each and every one of the 10 people could get the fund's total of $100. From Mittinger's perspective, the illusion of everyone on Earth signing up was just part of the inside story, the secret knowledge that the company would possess and that the newly recruited salespeople, the target for revenue, would not know or understand. As Neutralite was rolled out with the new plan and began to draw in hundreds of thousands of hopeful adherents, its saturation secret would mesmerize and confound those being propositioned, even as they lost money and quit in vast numbers and were replaced by their recruits who experienced the same predetermined outcome. It would also confuse regulators, who were asked to recognize inevitable saturation as the blatant red flag of the inherent deception of a pyramid scheme swindle. Staying one step ahead of attrition. Before the plan was enacted in late 1945, Neutralite continued to languish, leaving Carl Renborg with little bargaining leverage, yet still driven by his lifelong ambition to become rich and famous. When the contract was signed, Mittinger and Castleberry, still working at the munitions factory, gained complete control over sales and marketing, the sector that controlled the company's and Renborg's future. With their pooled psychological persuasion methods and sales manipulation techniques, Mittinger and Castleberry grasped that the endless chain plan would cause an explosion of signups. With insight into the plan's skyrocketing power and its outcome of massive losses for the recruits, Mittinger also foresaw that the challenge facing the new pyramid selling company was not going to be a scenario of total market penetration. Rather, it was how to sustain the recruiting when the illusion of unlimited opportunity lost its mystique, and people discovered that virtually no one actually is making the promised money. The marketing challenge is to keep the expansion illusion vivid and commercially viable, and never to give away the pyramid's secret that saturation prevented unending expansion. With this realization, Mittinger understood that the only way company revenue growth could be ultimately sustained would be to keep opening new territories or to target new population sectors. He needed to go where the reality of loss rates was not yet known, and the illusion of unlimited expansion was still believed. The teams of sales canvassers Mittinger had previously managed, selling cemetery plots, faced the local saturation scenario regularly. Their customers seldom needed more than one grave site and funeral plan. This is why he and his sales teams were constantly traveling outside the local area. In the pyramid plan, local saturation and a growing local awareness of consumer losses continuously eroded the base as if it were built on sand. Nutrilite, the first and for several years the only multi-level marketing company, was able to forestall a saturation phase by moving sequentially to every state in the country, facing no competitor and therefore no advanced knowledge among the consumers about how pyramid selling worked. By 1954, after an 8-year recruiting run, the decline had finally begun for the company. In the future, as more MLM companies were formed, this process would shorten in time. The plan was promoted as capable of expanding ad infinitum. Just 2.5 years later, after launching, Southern California was already becoming saturated with Nutrilite distributors, making further growth for the, quote, industrious new recruits very difficult. Question of saturation often is reduced to absurdity by asking whether a person could find even one new recruit, presuming if just one more person could be recruited, that saturation, and therefore the existence of a pyramid scheme, is absent. In reality, as the experience of Nutrilite recruiters in saturated Southern California revealed, the challenge is not to find just one new person. To be successful, many, perhaps thousands, must be found. Factoring a 50% or more annual dropout rate, or a dropout rate over 75% of the newest recruits, the income proposition requires a vast population of prospects for each person. In the confusing debates and legal wrangling over saturation, it is often forgotten that wherever the industrious recruiters go, even to other countries, they will only benefit themselves at the cost of virtually all others they rope in, who will be doomed to financial loss. The saturation secret protects the pyramid's bigger secret. It causes its harm the day it is launched. The percentage of losers is more or less fixed from the start.